If you've been here on the YouTube channel long enough, you would have seen many conversations had about Pittsburgh Penguins superstar Sidney Crosby. No, we're not talking about the Jordan Spence trade as it's popping up here on my YouTube channel, but Sid the Kid. This guy has been a focal point, a main conversation point for Montreal Canadiens fans and fans across the NHL who are curious about the future of this Pittsburgh Penguins legend. But what if I told you Sidney Crosby ain't the only late 30-year-old center on the Penguins? Firstly, that is on the team, and secondly, that is even being included in trade talks. Because with Sidney, you always have to bring up Gino. Today, we are talking about Evgeni Malkin and the latest trade updates in regards to which teams are asking about him on the market, and whether or not we can actually see a trade go down. We have some brand new info revealed to us via the folks on rg.org. Big shout out over to James Murphy, who published this article yesterday for our reading pleasure. A source says the Canadiens, Panthers, and Tampa Bay Lightning held interest in Evgeni Malkin. Now, before we dive into the article, let's talk about Malkin and the profile first and foremost, where Sidney Crosby is 38 years old, Gino is 39. First overall guy back in 2004. Second overall. Did I just say first? That's my bad. Okay. Somebody lock me up in hockey purgatory for now. But Evgeni Malkin is big, 6'5", 209, a left-handed guy, making $6.1 million a year till the end of 2026. For a long time, he was the highest-paid Pittsburgh Penguin, above Sidney Crosby. And while you can say that might not actually be worth it because Crosby is Crosby, Crosby was making 8.7. He wanted to stick to the number. He wanted to stick to his brand, which, of course, opened the door for Gino to be making just a tad bit more. Because Evgeni Malkin was, one of the best players in the National Hockey League. An immediate point-per-game stud. An immediate 100-point stud. A guy who maxed out grabbing himself all of these awards. Two-time Art Ross Trophy winner, one-time Hart Trophy winner, he won the Calder, he won 3 Stanley Cups, he won a Conn Smythe, he won a Ted Lindsay. He maxed out with so many points, and even the most recent season saw him put up 50 points in 68 games played. Not like superstar-level production, but still reasonably good. 2 years ago, he was over a point per game with 83 points in 82 games there. He was a consistent point per game player for a good chunk of these years, up until the 67 points in 82 games he got in 23-24, which coincidentally falls into the timeline when the Pittsburgh Penguins started playing poorly. Despite that, Evgeni Malkin has one more year on his contract. He's 39 years old, and he's in a spot where it's already been heavily documented that he wants to stay in Pittsburgh. Well, just because he wants to stay in Pittsburgh doesn't mean that other teams are not going to call on him, nor does it mean that he's not going to be included in trade talks. So, I'm going to leave a link in the description to this article by James Murphy on rg.org that dives into these key takeaways. 1. Is Evgeni Malkin open to leaving Pittsburgh? The answer is yes. Malkin said he would consider waiving his no-movement clause if the Penguins struggle and he gets a chance to chase another Stanley Cup. Which teams have shown interest in Malkin? The Canadiens, Lightning, and Panthers have all checked in on his availability since 2024. And number 3, could both Crosby and Malkin finish the season elsewhere? An NHL executive believes it's possible, noting Pittsburgh is in a rebuild and both stars have left the door open to moving on. Now, I'm not going to go out there and be that Habs fan, but could you imagine the Canadiens getting both Crosby and Malkin? Okay, I'm going to shut up. Let's just go out there and read the article here. This piece opens up by talking about whether or not Crosby and Malkin could both finish the upcoming season with different teams. After practice on Friday, Malkin told reporters that if, as many expect, the 25-26 season goes in the tank for the Penguins, he would consider waiving his no-movement clause to be traded to a Stanley Cup contender. On Friday night, an NHL executive source told Research Ground, "Oh, is that what RG stands for? Research Ground? Bro, I thought this whole time RG stood for responsible gambling. Oh my goodness, I'm an idiot. Researchground.org that 3 teams, the Canadiens, who have already been linked to Crosby, the Lightning, and the Panthers, have all looked into Malkin's availability at some point since 2024's offseason. I'm sure there have been other teams too in the past, but I'm told those 3 teams at some point last season asked about Malkin, Crosby, and other Penguins players. But as Kyle made it clear to the media so many times, the answer has always been a hard no. When it comes to Dubas, he really has done a great job of leaving this up to Sid and Malkin. He respects their standing in team league history, and he's letting them dictate where this goes. Well, now they're dictating it, and actually talking about it. They haven't asked out, but they haven't ruled asking out either. Leave it to Kyle Dubas to be the ultimate player's GM, man. I mean, we've seen this a number of times in Toronto and then, of course, in Pittsburgh with the Marc-Andre Fleury stuff, but if there's any GM that does the absolute best right that he can do by the players, it's Kyle Dubas. There's no forcing anybody out here. There's no running a guy out of town. There's no hard love, backstabbing like we have seen in Vegas. Nah. Kyle Dubas is the exact opposite of that. And sometimes it can hurt his hockey teams. We've seen that in Toronto with them letting go of some very notable names. But here, Malkin and Crosby, if they ever get traded, if they ever get moved out, it's going to be because they wanted to. Not because Kyle forced them to, but because they chose to. When speaking to reporters on Friday, Malkin cited former Boston Bruins captain Brad Marchand, who, after almost 16 full years with the Bruins, waived his no-trade clause in the 2025 trade deadline to be dealt to the Panthers. The 37-year-old Marchand went on to play an instrumental role in the Panthers' run to their second straight cup, with 10 goals and 10 assists in 23 games. "It's hard," said Malkin, who is entering his 20th year, and his first 19 of those years were all with the Penguins. Again, we see a story like Marchand, looking good. Team trades you, you win a cup. It's a little weird, too. Of course, everybody wants to make the playoffs, maybe make one more run at the Stanley Cup. Great story, but I don't know how I would feel if the Penguins want to trade me. Let's scroll down here. The article dives into what Kyle Dubas happened to say about how there were no plans to offer Malkin a contract extension this upcoming season. At the time, RG reported that some NHL executives were already monitoring the Malkin situation and wondering if and when he'd become available on the trade market. That would send a real message. This is a full-out rebuild in Pittsburgh and fuel Crosby rumors even more. But maybe it's best for all involved. I mean, would a team like Montreal be interested in Malkin as a mentor for Demidov that can also still play and be a stopgap in the middle this season? RG.org reached out to that same executive Friday night to get his take on Malkin's comments earlier in the day. Look, everyone around the league, including the Penguins, has known since the start of last season what was really going on in Pittsburgh. It's been pretty clear they've entered a rebuild. Having seen how that's taken a toll on any star athlete in the past, we've all wondered if and when the day would come when Crosby and Malkin would want out, so they could get one more chance to win a cup. So you're not doing your job if you haven't been monitoring this. Now, you've seen Sid at least not close the door on that, and Malkin opened the door with his words to the media. I personally don't see either of them finishing the season in Pittsburgh unless the team comes flying this season and stuns us all. So there you go. At least one anonymous NHL source is saying that both Malkin and Crosby are going to finish the year with other teams if he were to make a guess. But I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thoughts about these 3 teams having expressed interest in Evgeni Malkin. Malkin with Kucherov. Malkin with any of the guys they have in Florida. Or Malkin with Demidov. Lots to talk about here in regards to the Pittsburgh Penguins and their trade situation. If you liked this video, please feel free to click that like button, leave a comment as well. It helps us with the algorithm. I hope you enjoyed this conversation on Malkin, Crosby, and the Penguins. So that's 9 and bye.